Well, here's an interesting model steam engine. This is my latest eBay acquisition. And the seller who listed this didn't know the manufacturer. Which, well, I guess that's fair enough. If you're not into model steam engines, you won't really know what it is. But there is, in fact, a manufacturer's label on it, if you know what you're looking for. However, I was really surprised there wasn't a lot of interest in this. Obviously, it's in a pretty bad state, very, very badly rusted. But normally this particular model steam engine manufacturer's products do sell on eBay for a lot of money, and I got this for an extremely reasonable price. Now, as I said earlier, it's in a pretty bad state. It's pretty badly rusted. The valve is seized, the piston moves a little bit, but it's not completely free in its cylinder. So this is going to require a lot of work and definitely a full restore. But that's not going to be a problem. I mean, it's going to be, as I said, quite a bit of work. But no, I was extremely pleased to win this one because this is only the second one of these engines that this manufacturer's engines that I happen to have in my collection. So let's zoom in on the maker's mark there so you can see what I'm talking about. There we go. So what is it? Well, that is one of the marks of Märklin. This is a Märklin vertical boilered engine. Let's zoom back out again. And after a bit of research, there's an awful lot of information online about these engines. So if you're prepared to do a bit of digging and a bit of research, you can generally find out what they are. And this one is a model 4106/6.5. Now the 6.5 refers to the diameter of the boiler. Apparently 6.5 centimeters. Apparently Märklin made several models using the same number, but they came in different boiler sizes. So this is the 6.5, which seems to be quite rare. I haven't managed to find too many images of these online, but no, I'm really pleased to get this. And the other thing about this engine is it's very, very old. It's very difficult to put an exact date on it, but they're most commonly referred to as circa 1915. So this is well over 100 years old, this engine. So what's missing? Well, it's missing the burner. Again, that's not a problem. I'm sure I've got one that I can use. I think it was these used a single wick burner. Safety valve, again, that can be made, and the chimney, that can be made. So there's nothing drastically missing that can't be replaced. The sight glass, although it looks intact, has a massive crack down the back of it, which you can't actually see. But hopefully, looking at the design of the sight glass holder, that should be fairly easy to remove that. And as long as I've got some of the right size sight glass tubing, I should be able to replace that with the new tube. What else? Oh yes, there should be a little wooden handle on the boiler drain here. That's obviously gone. It should be similar to the one that's on the whistle at the top there. So there we go. A very nice example, if a bit old and rusty, of the Märklin 4106/6.5 vertical boilered upright model steam engine. Right, let's get on and get it stripped down, and we'll have a look at it once it's in pieces. Well, here's the disassembled Märklin 4106. Came apart really easy. I mean, these just obviously they're German, so they're extremely well made. Just doused all the threads in Rocket 40, and even though I'm sure some of them haven't been out for decades, all the screws except for one where the head sheared off came out absolutely fine. And it's quite nicely built. There's threads on the ends of the crankshaft here, and the eccentric threads on, and the pulley wheel here threads on the other side of the flywheel. So that's really nice. The valve, the steam valve here, is still seized. So we're going to soak this in some vinegar, and hopefully that will unseize that with a bit of luck. The piston freed itself up with a little bit of WD-40, so that was good. So what's next? Well, the boiler and firebox will go into a vinegar bath, and that will clean up all the corrosion on them. The base is cast iron, so you have to be a little bit more careful with cast iron because neat vinegar is a bit vicious. So I will use a 50-50 water vinegar mix and put the base and the flywheel and crankshaft and the engine mount in that and leave it for probably a couple of days. I mean, I'll check on it, but a couple of days, and that should clean all that rust off with a bit of luck. And the other brass parts, I could probably put them in the ultrasonic cleaner, although there's very few of them, so they'll probably just as easy to put them in vinegar, to be honest with you. So that's the next stage. Right, now, everything has been in soak for about 20 hours so far. I've removed the boiler, all of the little brass parts and the engine frame. Now, they've been removed from the vinegar bath that they were in, washed in water and basically dried off. Now I haven't done any other cleaning apart from the eccentric strap and piston valve, which the vinegar freed up quite nicely. I had to give it a gentle tap and it came out of the valve chest quite nicely. No damage to that whatsoever, so I'm well pleased with that. But there was a bit of pitting on there, so I've given that a little bit of going over with wire wool. We'll just I'll close in on those a bit so you can have a look at what they look like. And literally, most of those parts, as I said, apart from the eccentric strap, all the other parts, that's exactly what they look like when they come out of the vinegar bath. So they almost look like they're copper, but of course, obviously they're not. They are, in fact, brass. So the next stage is to have a go at them with wire wool or the wire wheel and clean them up, get them nice and shiny. As you can see, it also, the vinegar bath for the boiler also freed up the sight glass. I was able to take that out. I'm not sure whether you'll be able to see this, but I'll bring it in close. There is, it's going to focus on that. There's a massive crack all the way down. That was the back of the sight glass, and it's definitely got to be replaced. But the actual mount for the sight glass is fine on the boiler. Let's go over and have a look at that. There's the boiler. You can see that there. So that's okay. That's cleaned up really nicely. That's got to be wire brush on the firebox now. The inside cleaned up really well too. I don't know how well you'll be able to see that, but it did. So that's all good. Let's come back out again. Now the remaining items obviously are the base and the flywheel, and we'll have a look at those next. Now bear in mind, of course, that both the base and the flywheel, they were in a much weaker solution because it was 50-50 vinegar and water, but it's done a bloody good job. Certainly the flywheel, you know, it's actually starting to look like cast iron again. Now I have given that a bit of a going over with a wire brush, but I think that's pretty much ready to come out of there now. I think it's unlikely we're unlikely to get any more of the rust off in this process with this, but that will clean up nicely on the wire wheel. Now the base is coming along, but you know, you can't expect miracles with the base. It was basically completely covered in rust, and I think this is. Let's bring the camera out a little bit. Right. So yeah, you can actually see some of the cast iron is beginning to show, particularly on the sides and the underside. It's cleaned up quite well, but like I said, this is a slow process. This thing was encrusted with rust. So you can see by the colour of the vinegar water solution, but it's doing its job. You know, hopefully, I'm probably going to have to leave that in there at least overnight, I would have thought, to finish that off. But hopefully most of that rust will be gone, and we will have that nice grey colour that you can see there, all over it with a bit of luck. So yes, it's coming along, but it's a bit of a slow and messy process. Well, we're a little bit further along with the Märklin vertical. All of the brass parts now have been cleaned up. The steam inlet pipe on the cylinder, on the valve chest here, that definitely needs a little bit of work. I'll close in on those for you. Obviously the boiler and firebox have cleaned up quite nicely. The firebox, unfortunately, has suffered the ravages of rust, and as you can see, it's actually it's gone through there, but that's not too bad. And obviously that's going to get painted with high temperature engine paint. I still need to do a little bit more polishing on the boiler, but it's come up quite well. Quite pleased about that. But yeah, if we have a look at the brass parts there. There we go. Now, as you can see, someone's had a go at soldering this very badly, and it's all crooked. So I'm going to have a go at cleaning that up before we put it back together. The flywheel came out very well, as you can see there. That cleaned up extremely well in its 50/50 vinegar water bath, and then a little bit of work on the wire wheel. Now that on these, I believe, was painted black, so I'll need to mask off the rim and then etch, prime and paint that. But yeah, I'm well pleased with the way it all cleaned up. It's all come out very well, and the base has been in, I don't know, must be 3 days now, I suppose. And I think we're pretty much there with the base. I don't think we're going to get many more of the crud off, so I'll just lift that out temporarily so you can see. Obviously, you know, there is still some rust on it. But to be honest with you, a lot of what's left on there now, there is some rust, but a lot of the non-exposed cast iron areas are actually have got paint on them. So, you know, it certainly has cleaned up dramatically from what it was like when it went in there. So I'm well pleased with that. So that's where we are at the moment. I will lift out the base, wash it off, and then we'll have a closer look at it. So here's the cast iron base. I've washed it off, I've dried it off, I've given it a blow over with the gas torch just to remove any moisture. It helps to stop it from like rusting up instantly. As you can see, it's done an amazing job. I mean, yes, there is still a little bit of rust on there, but I can take that off with a wire brush. But compared to the incredibly encrusted state of this, you know, when it was when we put it in, that is pretty impressive, really. Quite strange underneath. One side seems to have cleaned up much better than the other. I don't quite know what's going on there, but like I said, I can get in there with a small wire brush and we'll get the rest of it off. And obviously, there's some of this is paint that's on here. That's it's not rust, it's paint. But yeah, I'm well pleased with that. And if you wanted any further proof of how effective this actually is, then have a look at what's left in the bottom of the pan. I mean, that's just thick with rust residue. So, and also bear in mind, again, this was a 50/50 water vinegar mix, so it's not like neat vinegar. It was a diluted solution, and it's very, very good. That kind of that percentage mix for cast iron is excellent. So I need to get on and clean that one up on the wire wheel, and then we'll move on to the next stage.